Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Touchline. For maybe the first time ever, you are not being greeted by Miss Oarabedi Poko. That today she's actually backstage, and your special guest, introductee, your special guest host, good old Vince underscore 92 is joined by his friend, Pipi, an avid Liverpool fan, who I'm so excited to have you on the panel. OG, how are you doing?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me here tonight. It was a bit unexpected, now, but I'm ready to go.
As unexpected as this for Liverpool to be making the top four, and as usual, Oarabedi Poko, our oh so famous host. I am so excited to see you on the other side today. How are you today?
2 minutes in and you're already throwing shade.
It's
Stop,
my
Vince.
show. It's my show.
I'm good. How are you, gentlemen, tonight?
I'm fantastic. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this chat. And this panel was perfectly orchestrated because I actually wanted a peaceful podcast today. I didn't want those other guys from Manchester. I didn't want. Well, we don't have any Spurs fans, so it's fine. So I actually want to have like a peaceful chat today about football, and I've got a couple of things that I actually want to address. But
Yes.
top of the bat, Harry Kane, guys. I feel like he is maybe the story of our season because he's maybe the first player, well, not even maybe, he's the first player after Thierry Henry to finish the season with leading stats in assists and leading stats in goals. OG, just how impressive has Harry Kane been for your season, and what do you feel that he's added to his game that was so different or so lacking in prior years?
Look, one thing that can be said about Harry Kane is his undying consistency. I mean, they've went through managerial changes, injuries here and there, but he still stayed consistent even under Jose and even under Mr. Mason himself. And what makes it even better is that he's adapted his game from being that striker that plays off, the defender's last shoulder to being able to drop deep, hold the ball up, and connect, the player all around. So it's been quite impressive what he's been able to do and stack the numbers that he has, even with the couple of injuries that he's had this season.
Absolutely. And I just want to go and touch on the point that you made there. His ability to be able to kind of drop in and being able to go and, play those passes for Son, for Bale. But I mean, if we're adding that element of the assists into Harry Kane's game this season, we know that the man behind that was essentially Mourinho because he brought that out of him. Have we been able to see much of the same since the new managers come into the fold?
I think, like Oachen said, he's kept the standard of, we know Harry Kane to score goals every single season. And also within that season, there's always an injury for some odd reason. But bringing that element of assisting, it puts you out and makes you stand out better than the rest because that's the kind of modern day striker that we're all looking for, especially now. And to be honest, with Mourinho having been there the past 18 months, he's made Kane a little bit more attractive than we've known him to be. And it sounds very awkward to say that he's made him more attractive, but those assists didn't come from nowhere. Kane would probably go a season with 2, 3, 4 assists, less than 5 in a season. For him to be both, playmaker and golden boot is absolutely phenomenal. And I know Vince is probably smiling because his newly found Manchester City team is probably just going, we're waiting for him.
And I love what you say. I love what you're saying over there. Let's leave my newly found team out of there. But the fact that he's come out, and he says, and he's told Daniel Levy, and he's come out and been honest to the Spurs faithful and said, listen, it's time for me to also have an honest chat with the chairman at the end of the season. And we know Harry's going to meet with Daniel Levy at the end of the season. He has come out also, last week, and he's gone and said, that he feels that Kevin De Bruyne is a striker's dream. OG, do we feel that Harry is on his way to a Premier League club, or do you feel that there's no ways that Daniel Levy will go and sell him to any neighbor, whether it be a city neighbor or it may be, shall we say, a UK neighbor?
Look, I'm not one who normally, panders to conspiracy theories, but if you look at Harry Kane's legacy or the legacy that he's built up so far in the Premier League, it's been with that one club where he stacked up the goals, where he stacked up the achievements, similarly to, another, striker that we had in Alan Shearer when he was at Newcastle. So being the conspiracy theorist that, that I am sometimes, I'd like to think that the media and, the narrative and the story that they could sell, they would want him to stay in the Premier League, So I think as blindsided or as short-sighted as it might be, he might end up going to a top 6 rival. Who it is yet, we don't know. That's the thing.
But that's what I want, though, is I want that opinion. I want you to be speculative. I want you to stop sitting on the fence. Where do you think Harry Kane is good? Because this question is going to Ms. Dipoko as well. And I want to know, get off the fence, OG. Where is Harry Kane playing his football next season?
Honestly, if I was a betting man, I'll tell you something for nothing. He's definitely going to Man City to replace Aguero. Yes, we know he's leaving. Or he's definitely going to end up at the other blue team, Chelsea, knowing how they've got their goal-scoring woes with Timo Werner struggling to adapt quickly to the league. Abraham's sort of on the outs with Tuchel, and Giroud, who seemingly didn't get enough game time throughout the season. So those are my 2 best bets.
And I think the beauty about this is we know that the Chelsea number 9 jersey, the leading striker at Chelsea, it's a heavy jersey to go and hold. We're talking the likes of Drogba. We're talking the likes of Shevchenko. We're talking about, even though he was there for maybe a short period of time, but he did get into the Champions League final in terms of Fernando Torres. I mean, we're talking Diego Costa. Do you think that Harry Kane has that number 9 in him to go and do it at Chelsea, Mr. Popo?
Well, I think, he hit the nail on the head. The minute you said Harry Kane, I knew it had to be a blue team. I don't want to be biased. Thank God he said it first. But it's one or the other. You look at all the other top 6. I don't know whether we can still, mention the other red team that's dropped to 9th, 10th later on in life. Whether we still mention it as top 6. But looking at those teams and looking at finances also, because do you remember that Harry Kane also signed a new contract less than two years ago, I think, at Tottenham. So that already says his price tag is at least 120 mil. Like, we know Daniel Levy is going to be very petty about it if it's going to be a top 16. So looking at finances, looking at both teams, I do think City seem to be the favorites right now. I don't know what kind of English or Spanish or Portuguese that Tuchel might speak to Harry Kane and convince him otherwise. But I see Man City being the front runners. And if not, Kane will easily fill that number 9, even with the injuries. Do you remember that Chelsea's top goal scorer this season was Jorginho, and it was 7 penalties? So that alone plays a role in coughing up those finances for Harry Kane.
Might I just be able to play devil's advocate with you folks, and let's go out forth and let's go and assume that what they say about Manchester United, them being the most attractive and the biggest club in the world, let's assume that is true. All right. Do we see Harry Kane potentially saying he's leaving to go and win trophies, but then go and sign for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the PE teacher, for Old Trafford? Can we see that happening, even though they've just pinned down Edison Cavani to a 1-year extension? Can we see Harry Kane in the Man United jersey? This for either of you guys.
I don't see it. And Cavani does play a huge role in that because, one, his wages are ridiculous. Let's not forget that. And 2, Manchester United was saying how Jadon Sancho is expensive at 100 mil. Do you think they have money for Harry Kane? Harry Kane is undoubtedly a lot more than that. So the finances play a huge role. Harry Kane is 28. He's not trying to go back on his word of leaving and winning trophies. Also, you can't be like, I want to win trophies at Man U, and the last one was 2017. So it's also a bit tricky in that regard. Whether Europa Cup, if they do win it on Wednesday, that will attract him. That's still a story that we're yet to see. But like I say, those Champions League finalists are looking pretty nice to be the ones to get him.
Sure. All right, folks. That's my chat about Harry Kane. Obviously, I don't want Harry Kane to go and dominate our whole chat. But I mean, it would just be so wrong of me to have a Liverpool fan on this show, and let's not absolutely put him through the ruins. OG, let's not lie. This was the most sorry defense for a Premier League title in maybe since Leicester's season. Okay, Now, if we're gonna go back, let's say 5 games ago, since the last from 5 games, so let's say game week 33. Game week 33, we know what a tumultuous situation you guys have been on, and if you look at your top 5 right now, Liverpool is essentially the only team that has gone ahead and won their last 5 games to obviously go and finish off, by the grace of the God that Mohamed Salah serves, to go and finish off in the top 4. Just how impressive has, shall I say, the comeback, of Liverpool been towards the cested end of the season? And were you, as a Liverpool fan, expecting this? Did you always feel that this could always become potentiality? Is that even a word? Could this have been? I'm creating my own things, and I know this is going to become that segment now on Touchline. Could this have been something that we thought was going to happen?
Look, one thing that we need to applaud FSG on, and this is the best signing they ever made, was getting Jurgen Klopp at the helm of the club. He's just shown time and time again what he's been able to do with a limited amount of funds, and also just his ability to man manage and actually be able to bring the best out of players. It never worried me for a bit, even when we lost Matip and we ended up losing Gomez before that, and even Van Dijk when we played Everton. You saw even with the different combinations that he played at the back, I think it was just a matter of seamlessly putting the kids like Nat Phillips and Reece Williams through the ringer, just adjusting their mentality to actually be able to cope with the pressures and the physicality of the Premier League, so that when the time was right, we could go on that run of games which saw us ending third. And if you had to go look at our past results, I mean, we were the best informed team at the time. So I think he undoubtedly did what he does best, which is what Jesus did, walk on water. And look, we're reaping the rewards right now.
My apologies. There you go. In terms of what could have happened yesterday, and so I say the repercussions of, let's say, one moment that went a different course. So let's say Liverpool had gone ahead and won, or as they had won 2-0 yesterday. Let's say that Leicester Spurs game had gone differently, and Leicester had actually essentially pipped Spurs yesterday to actually go and get the 3 points. And there's a question coming to you, Rabs, is that if you qualified 5th yesterday, if Chelsea finished off 5th, because a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, we spoke about how Thomas Tuchel has just been incredible since he's come into the helm at Chelsea. You have just come out of a pretty bad loss to Leicester in the FA Cup. Had you not found yourself in the top 4 and finished up 5th, and let's not even consider what's going to happen in the Champions League, okay? What evaluation would you have given Thomas Tuchel for the season? Let's say you had gone ahead and lost the Champions League final. So you're finishing 5th, you've lost your FA Cup final, and you've lost the Champions League final. What would your evaluation of Thomas Tuchel have been?
I mean, it's a very tricky one. I mean, as a soccer fan, you always want your team to win. But logic says my guy came in when we were 10th on the log. So 5th is a win for him. It is massive because we never even thought that Europa would have even been an option. And also talking about the fact that if we had finished 5th, Chelsea, every single time they've played Europa, have won it twice and gone and won it without losing any single game in the process. So it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world that could have happened to Chelsea because, one, Thomas Tuchel has found out firsthand that it's within the Chelsea DNA that when they don't want to play, they will not play. That's just Chelsea. They've been this way. It's such a horrible trait for them to have, but they've done it to every single manager. Sarri has felt it. Conte has felt it. Mourinho is the worst that has felt it. So they know that this is currently what happens at Chelsea. But disappointment will be there, and that's the only thing they'll be going, it's okay, we were 10th anyway. We tried. I'm not doing next nonsense. We still would have been pissed.
but we also know that, as a new manager comes in, Abramovich will also open the checkbook.
Yes.
And let's leave Aguero out of it. You know, you've had 7 players come in the season, 5 of them starters, 5 of them who are potentially starting the Champions League final.
Yes.
As you evaluate your team now, where do you feel that you're still lacking? Where do you feel like you still need something?
Besides the number 9, child.
Like I said, let's leave Aguero out of this because obviously that's who you're looking for. And let's leave Harry Kane out of this.
Yeah.
But where do you potentially? Let's talk about the realistic signing. You know, and we're not talking about the Kane. We're not talking about the potential of Aguero, which we'll touch on at the end of the show. But where do you feel that there is something that you feel like you're lacking in your child, whether it be as young and as very experienced as it is right now? Where is that one place that you can regiment, and with who actually that's going to be able to take Chelsea essentially from the fourth place, that they earned yesterday, to essentially the summit of the Premier League, which is what happens when you get a new manager. They win the league. So what takes you there?
Honestly, it's gonna sound very, very crazy to say, but I still would want another winger. I really think that that's something that Chelsea need to still go and get, and also another defensive midfielder. I think if you have that balance in that midfield, because I see Joaquin shaking his head. You can't have Jorginho there. I'm sorry, you can't. Kovacic is 1, bound to get injured in the season. 2, Kante is overused. Gilmore Kelly is not a favorite for Tuchel. So one or the other, you're going to see a central midfielder still coming in at Chelsea. We have a centre back that is out on loan, Sarri. So I'm guessing he's probably coming back home. And do remember, Chelsea have a lot of people out on loan. We have Conor Gallagher at West Brom, and so all of those kids are coming home. We know Loftus-Cheek has to come home, and they all have to prove themselves. So Thomas Tuchel gets to pick who he wants to pick, and hopefully also go for a formation that suits the players he will have once he decides after the Euros.
I see you celebrating there, OG. Is something you want to say?
No. You can hear from what Mr. Poko is saying that Chelsea are used to being hoarders. They must leave these players to the rest of us that actually need them, eh?
It's very interesting to me that you would go and say you need wingers when we're sitting with a team that has, Callum Hudson-Odoi, they've got Hakim Ziyech, they've got Timo Werner. We're talking about they would call Callum Hudson-Odoi world class. We're talking about players that are essentially world class by their own feet. And if that's still not enough, you still have Kante, you still have Jorginho, as you said, Billy Gilmore, you still have players that can still play a position that are still playing at the back. So when is it enough? Because I feel like
it's never enough.
And that other side from Manchester.
It's never enough. Have you seen Manchester City, what they have? And we still want to talk about Chelsea? Oh, hell no, it's never enough.
No, it's an honest question. In terms of, let's talk about an OG. I mean, we really have one goal of the season, And I know as a Liverpool fan, I know what goal that is. But is there anything that trumps what you're about to go and tell me? Is there anything that trumps that in the season that we just seen?
Look, I think in a season of ups and downs, and I know which goal I'm talking about. I think in a season of ups and downs, I think that is actually what culminated, our, revolution, this upturn in fortune where, we're seemingly struggling for results where, we were just nicking them by 1-0 or just losing them by 1 goal. So I think it just definitely did something for the morale of the team. And I just think with Alisson's story, with him losing his father earlier in the season as well, it was also like a rallying cry, for the players to actually, start getting behind one another and actually, start, living and embodying, the saying, you'll never walk alone kind of, so I think all in all, it worked out perfectly. How pundits don't see that as the goal of the season, especially because of its importance and what it means for Liverpool going into, the next season in Europe as well. I mean, come on, I think they're a bit blind, eh?
Mr. Poko, any goal that you feel like you particularly saw that you felt like embodied more than what OG's just expressed, and you kind of captured the Premier League as a whole?
Eric Lamella's recent goal, not too long ago. Clever, slick, especially because it's from Lamella. We're talking about a Lamela who still has less goals than Bale, who left to go to Madrid and came back and still has more goals than him. So that for me was the surprise. I didn't see that one coming. We tend to forget that some of these players actually have these things in their locker rooms. You know, we are shocked sometimes when they actually achieve and do these things. Just like how when, Jay Links has how he's been scoring and the goals that he's been getting too. It's been incredible to watch that rise. Never mind Joe Willock at Newcastle. I think he has been an absolute devastating person to watch. And he too got some very crucial goals for Newcastle, because I think without Joe Willock, Newcastle would have been drawn into that relegation battle yet again.
And I'm going to touch on the players you just mentioned now, as well as the influence in the teams. But do we not then place like value on the result that a team gets because of a goal? Because remind me, but when Eric Miller played that team that he scored that Rabona against, that I'm not at all affiliated with, when he scored that goal, did that game not end in a loss to Tottenham Hotspur? So essentially, what did the magic lead to? Whereas we look at, Bahrain's goal, that 94th minute header by Alisson, to go and essentially put them in the top four, because the points do stand. Liverpool with 69 points, Chelsea with 67 points, Leicester with 66 points. Without those points, they're out of that top five, that top four. So do we not put an emphasis on the weight of the goal versus just the glamour behind it? Wayne Rooney 2011.
I don't.
What did it mean?
I don't, because as much as we want to say that football is a team sport,
you think of another player, it would actually have to be, an underrated one, but it's Jay Links. He's resurrected his career. We know what he was dealing with the mental health issues that he went through and all his personal circumstances. So to see him rise above that, was really like a moment of triumph. So I think he deserves to be on that list, even if it was from Jan till the end of the season. And I think if I had to actually put one more person on that list, and apologies to my Liverpool player or fans and friends in advance, but Diaz for City. I know he's just one player, but he's done so much for City this season, especially coming into that back line, not knowing whether it was going to be Stones or Laporte who were playing, and seemingly, let's not forget Nathan Ake, who came in for 40 million, 50 million and didn't end up playing. So it really says a lot to the testament of his game, and actually from such a young age to be able to command so much respect on the pitch. Definitely.
Yeah, 22, 23-year-olds as well. These Portuguese players, let's talk about how Portuguese are, how stacked they're going to be for the Euros. And we've essentially learned from that 2016-17 transfer of Virgil van Dijk just how important the base of your spine actually is to your team. Hile, your top three players in terms of your PFA Player of the Year. Obviously, you've noticed that no one has even mentioned a Rembrandt of a Chelsea player. And I fully know that you are going to include someone. So the mic is yours. Your top three players for PFA Player of the Year, and who you feel should be PFA Player of the Year.
Does it have to be three? Can I have 5.1?
Honestly, I've always known you as a person that will go and take the whole arm while I'm offering you a hand. So if you want to make it up, if you want to make it 5, then please, by all means.
Okay. Riyad Mahrez. I'm not putting them in any order. Riyad Mahrez has had a surge at Manchester City. When OG was talking about Kevin De Bruyne there, I was just like, Riyad Mahrez has scored some incredible goals, some crucial goals, especially Champions League. I think Champions League, Riyad Mahrez has been undoubtedly one of the best players. So I'm going to put him there, as well as Edouard Mendy. I think he has stabilized that defense. It also helps with the fact that, they're all, so to speak, French. So he doesn't have to go too much outside of his comfort zone. He can speak his home language. That's okay. I think he has stabilized that team in such a good way. Another one that is going to cause a lot of controversy, but that's okay. His stats say it all. Bruno Fernandes, we cannot forget him. They won't let us anyway. So, what, have the glory. There you are. Bruno Fernandes is one of them. But also, just to mention a couple of other players that have done so well for themselves, we can't forget what Harry Kane has done this season. Son will not forget. All of Son's goals probably were assisted by Harry Kane. He improved Son, and I always look at players that improve other players in the team. You know, sometimes you want to say Motho ke kgomo, but ke kgomo only because he's playing Lidi Boot. So it's one of those things where I will not forget what Harry Kane did. Jay Links is there too. And lastly, Ilkay Gundogan. When Manchester City was going through that drought of not scoring, Gundogan, 10, 11 games in a row, he made sure that he got those crucial results. So we cannot forget the unbelievable season that he too has had.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes the issue when we go and vote for the PFA Player of the Year at the end of the season, is that I feel like your form towards the end of the season essentially dictates who essentially that award goes to. But you are so right in the fact that, you know, in that phase, you know, when City really started getting those defensive games, you know, that 1 or 2 kind of nick goals, you know, at the end of the game, it really was that German Ilkay Gundogan right there getting them for them. So I know you didn't even name, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 players. You pretty much named the PFA Team of the Year. I thank you for that. I appreciate you for that, you know. And obviously, we'll be keeping our eyes glued to Sky Sports in terms of figuring that out. But essentially, the one thing, and I'm going to really just single out, actually, I don't even need to single out teams over here. But when we know that certain teams have kind of overachieved this season, you know, we know who the overachievers are in terms of, you know, West Ham and how, you know, Lings and David Moyes were able to go and carry them, you know, and things forth. But if we look at the biggest losers this season and the teams that we feel that kind of let themselves down in terms of there wasn't a new manager, you know, there was so much expectation in terms of them coming in. Who do we feel has, like, you know, really let the fan base down? And I'm not singling out one team, you know, even though I'm hinting towards 1 or 2 teams. But where do you feel, OG, you know, teams like Leicester, teams like Sheffield, teams like Arsenal, you know, which team do you feel that, you know, top of the list based on the expectations I had of you at the start of the season that they were certainly tempered by reality?
I think if I had to be honest, and I think it's, you know, 2 sides of the same coin. I think Chelsea in the beginning of the season, for all the expectations and all the money spent and Lampard falling short, I definitely think they were, you know, they take it until the halfway mark, you know. I just think because Abramovich is so ruthless and he puts the success behind before any other, you know, sense of camaraderie or loyalty to a Chelsea old boy. That's why Chelsea has seen this, you know, recent success, you know, in winning, you know, Champions Leagues and also winning the league. And but if I had to talk about another team, I think it would be Arsenal. Definitely the Arsenal. I just think for all that we heard about Mikel Arteta being, you know, an understudy to Pep and, you know, the tiki-taka and all of this, he couldn't, you know, incorporate that into, you know, how Arsenal ended up playing. You know, there was this weak mentality within the team where, you know, they had this streak of ill discipline, players getting red cards, conceding easy goals. You would think that those were things that he would try to have rectified first. And I think because of their status, you expect them to be higher up, you know, the log. So I think they were definitely the most disappointing team for me in terms of a team that should have performed, but definitely underperformed.
Yeah, absolutely. And over to you, because I mean, there's so many teams to go and choose on, because it's literally been a season of really disappointment when you get to the top of the log, even to the bottom of the log. Besides Arsenal and Chelsea, is there anything else you single out in terms of the other teams that you feel like, damn, from what I expected of you, it just really didn't go according to plan?
I think the number 1 is Sheffield, because wow, I don't even know how Chris Wilder stayed as long as he did, because if you're going 10 games without a win and then it's 15 and you're still there, I'm like, guys, I don't understand. They really should have just kept him until the end of the season, because it didn't make sense at the time they let him go. It didn't make sense. So Sheffield have undoubtedly been the biggest disappointment considering what they did last season and where they ended up. They were the biggest disappointment, but also you look at the likes of Leicester, because if you're Leicester and 2 years in a row you're dropping out of top 4 on the last day, haven't spent the most amount of time in the top 4 of the teams that are there, that is a big disappointment on its own. And looking at the Premier League and how shrewd it can be, if Brendan Rodgers had not won FA Cup, I think we would have seen a headline of him being dismissed by Leicester, because you can't afford to do that 2 seasons in a row. No way.
Yeah.
That is
and I can tell you right now, if he was dismissed, there's a small little there are 2 teams in North London that would definitely love to go and grab his services. And it's interesting because they say insanity is essentially doing the same thing and expecting different results. And you kind of think to yourself, how it went to the last day, last season, in terms of Leicester falling out of the top 4. Had to go again this year and falling out of the top 4. And obviously have themselves to go and blame, because as of 2 weeks ago, it was in Liverpool's hands. But 2 weeks ago, it was always in Leicester's hands, and essentially they were the front runners of that. So it's very, very incredible how that's gone. So in terms of the Premier League, in terms of how they sit now, and in terms of the top 4 that we have there, Man City, Man United, Liverpool, and Chelsea. If we go and make one call in terms of next season, in terms of a team that's going to break into that top 4, and I'm not asking for a team that's going to go and break out of that top 4, who do we feel is going to go and break into that top 4 next season?
Look, I don't want to sound vain, but I just think with how finances are set up, especially with the TV deals and, investment, I think that top 4 stays as is. I just think also with a prolonged or normal-ish off season, players will have the rest that they deserve. They'll come back, playing at optimum levels, firing on all cylinders. And I think Liverpool was also like a victim of such a short preseason in which we saw so many, muscle-related injuries. So I think it stays the same. I don't think it changes. I think
I'm listening to him, and the reasoning behind all of it is absolutely correct. I think the only thing that I want to slightly differ on is the fact that there won't be an off season. We're playing Euros next month, and after that, we're straight back in it. So if you're going to use, and I'm going to say if you're going to use that as an excuse, because that's probably how everybody's going to find it, how, there's no off season. Players are used to that kind of stuff. By now, they know that this is what happens. Unfortunately, it just happened to the one particular team this season. It could be Manchester City next season. It could be Chelsea next season. It's one of those things where when you're playing football literally for over 300 days a year, it's bound to happen. And also, some players might not come back after Euros. I mean, we're already getting players right now that aren't making Euros. So we already know there will be a little bit of a problem. But coming back to the top 4, I'm looking at who's just behind us. Leicester, West Ham, Everton are also a bit tricky in that sense too. I mean, there was so much hope for Everton also the start of this season. But again, it's that experience of, have you been there? Do you know how to win? Do you know how to keep going even when the game is tough, Everton doesn't have that mentality. Hopefully this season they picked up a little bit of that. But I think I'm going with OG with regards to, I don't see that top 4 changing next season.
No, and I hear you. And they always say, the cream definitely always rises to the top. And though West Ham spent so much time there, though Villa spent so much time there during the season, though Leicester spent so much time there, essentially the top dogs always end up at the top. But I don't know how we haven't completely got into this, but there's a massive game coming up on Saturday. And obviously it's that Champions League final between City and Chelsea. So my question over here is simple. 1, who's taking it? And 2, would, in terms of the form going into this game, right? We have a City team now that essentially has just dispatched of Everton 5-0, at maybe a somewhat, the best 11 out there, maybe. And then you have a Chelsea team that has maybe somewhat stumbled. They've lost the cup final, they've lost a game, over the weekend, but they did go and win the latest bout between Chelsea. So going into this fixture, do we put more emphasis on the fact that City has won their last couple of games, and so they have that feel-good factor going into this game, or do we look at the fact that Chelsea is actually, though they've lost their last few games, but they've got that psychological edge because they did essentially win that game against City a fortnight ago? Bile, first of all, who are you favoring? Rhetorical question. And also
the darker blue, the dark blue, the royal blue.
And also, who's walking into this fixture? Who should feel more confident walking into this fixture with an extra oomph in their step?
Listen, as a player, every single game you should be walking with a oomph in your step. Everybody's trying to be in your position. So that if that alone does not give you enough motivation, you're in the wrong career. But one thing we know about cup finals is that irregardless of form, you take your chances on the day, finish and claro, you bury them, that's it. It's irregardless of form. And that's, on Chelsea's side of life, they have that thing of we've beaten Pep Guardiola twice already this season. You know what I mean? So they already have that thing in their heads where we've done this before, we can do this. Nothing can really stop us. And obviously looking at City, this is a cup that's evaded them for so long. They have so much to do for it. They have so much to win it for. They have Aguero who's leaving, who has always said, I will never leave without giving you a Champions League. So, it's things like that go into the factors of the day. But another thing is that a week is a very long period. Some people can get injured in training, even though you have this picture perfect 11 that you have in your head. So anything can change. Anything really can change. A cup final is exactly that. It's a final. Treat it as such.
So both in City and Chelsea's did, and also you feel the darker side of the darker blue are going to win. OG,
Yes.
I know that also you've been in this final twice in the last half a decade, and for the first time ever, it's going to be so amazing because I'm going to have you both at my house watching this fixture together this Saturday. And I want to know, and I want to know. Finally, we're going to be watching a game, where I know who I'm supporting, but you can be actually watching as a
neutral,
football fan, but also within the confines of our chat, I also know that you really hate that Airways team. So, who do you feel is going to win this Friday? Or this Saturday, and also who do you feel is in better stead getting into this fixture?
Look, I just think the law of averages dictates that City's taking it. Just based on, I mean, like sports is, one of the most unpredictable things that you can come across. But I just think with everything looming over Pep's head, having last won it with Messi at Barcelona, having struggled at Bayern Munich, with that star-studded team that he had, to being at City and always, overthinking formations and getting knocked out in, the quarters and the semis. I just think it's one of those moments where, it either hangs over his head like a guillotine, or it's actually the second wind in his sail, which actually propels them, to actually winning their first Champions League. And I think he gets it right in terms of formation, in terms of player personnel, in terms of just everything management wise, So I think City takes it, as much as I don't want them to get their first, European title yet. But I honestly think, it's just written in the stars. Like my learned colleague, Mr. Poko, said, Aguero's leaving. What better story, to write, in headlights. So I think they take it. I really think they take it, and they take it comfortably.
Yeah, and we also know, obviously, the fact that Guardiola has always been his own worst enemy in previous seasons. And I think he's essentially learned that fact that he also overcomplicates things, and we've been able to see it. Though he hasn't played with a striker, he's consistently not been playing with a striker. So he's essentially been doing what he's been doing for countless fixtures. But also, to stay with you, because I do want to touch a little bit on a couple of other leagues. We saw what happened this weekend. Luis Suarez winning the La Liga with Atletico Madrid after they told him at the start of the season that you are too old to play at the highest of levels. Just in terms of part of the Liverpool faithful, and what a story. Part of the Liverpool faithful. Just how much do you feel that meant to Luis Suarez? And essentially, how great is it to essentially have that seesaw, a juggernaut of Real Madrid, Barcelona, finally broken by Atletico Madrid. Last time was 2012. Here we go now in 2021, second time in a decade. How happy are you to see that? How happy are you for Luis Suarez? And how do Liverpool faithful feel about him essentially capturing his Liga with a second team?
Look, I can't speak for every Liverpool fan, but I can certainly speak for myself. And Luis Suarez has always had an elite mentality. He's a winner. He's relentless. He embodies, determination. Yes, he's had his off the pitch and on the pitch moments, but one thing you can't deny, he's a serial winner. So when Ronald Koeman, said, straight up, I don't need him. I think that was also very short-sighted and very,
Naive.
he was too proud, very naive, to think that I can do it with Messi alone. But it takes, sometimes it takes more than one chef to cook a meal, and with everything that's going on with Atletico, I think they just had the perfect team. And Suarez, encapsulated everything that they strive for: defend, work hard, and provide the opportunities for those that can score. So to see him, victorious after being told that he's not needed, oh my goodness, what a Cinderella story!
100%. And essentially, I want to say, pretty much in the same breath, Bile, how we speak about, strikers that are essentially getting on, but we know that they can still play at the highest of levels. There's so much talk about Messi's contract ending at the end of the season. And here we were, talking about what if Messi's going to City? But now we've heard the whispers of how Sergio Aguero might be going to Barcelona. Do we see that happening? Do we essentially see Sergio Aguero joining Messi at Barcelona to go and give Atletico another jump at the title and trying to recapture that Liga next season?
I can see Aguero going there. I don't think it's far-fetched. But something I'm not sure that I am seeing is Messi still being there next season. I'm not sure. I think with the whole issue with the contract last season, I think that also put his mind and perspective in a different direction. Just seeing how the team he's given his life to, the things that were threatening to do, what they did and what they were saying. I don't know whether that still is something that he's okay with. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see Messi past the 30th of June at Barcelona, but I can see Aguero being there. With regards to Luis Suarez, it's a bit odd. I mean, it would be very tricky if they do sign another 32-year-old after letting a 32-year-old go and saying, hey, we don't need you, but go get another one. And another one that is even more consistent in his injuries than the one they let go. So that's essentially for me. If they get Aguero, are they now how much are they selling Coutinho for? Is Dembele still reliable? Is PK still gonna be there? There's so many questions to Barcelona's team right now that even not just Aguero, potential suitors for Barcelona are probably also questioning whether they still want to be there or want to go there next season.
So my question then to you would then be, is essentially Aguero potentially coming through to Barcelona, not essentially a pair for Messi, but essentially a replacement for the goals that they're going to be losing in Lionel Messi if he moves away? And also, don't you think that the fact that Messi has essentially won this battle, with Jose Bartomeu as the president of Barcelona, don't you feel him essentially winning that battle and him stepping out of that role essentially made Messi saying, okay, fine, now that the root of the problem is essentially gone, I'm happy to come and stay here because this is home for me. He has given so much to that club, and to kind of move away from a club to try and go and play competitive football in another league at 50 years old. He is no Cristiano Ronaldo. So
true.
Messi is off to another league.
I think up until there's a new contract in play, we never know what Messi's thinking, because that's the thing about Lionel Messi. We always just wait for the announcement. He will let us think, he will let us scratch our heads, he will let us joke, he will let us tweet, and then he goes and does, the unimaginable. So I will wait for the official announcement, considering the fact that how his family was also family to Barcelona, and I can't imagine how they felt, what they were doing to him, telling him that, hey, if you want to leave, we'll bench you for a whole season. I mean, why would you say that to your star player? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So we don't know how he would feel about that. But with Aguero, I really won't be shocked if he does. I mean, Pep Guardiola has already whispered. He said he doesn't know whether he's, telling something he shouldn't be telling. That already just says you shouldn't be saying it, but that's fine. It seems as if Aguero is going to Barcelona.
Okay. And honestly, guys, my last two points, because we have to mention the last two leagues. And one question for OG, one question for Bile. OG, I want to ask you, in terms of Serie A, we've seen how everything's been under Serie A, and Inter have essentially won this league for a couple of weeks now. Antonio Conte at the helm. We know what Antonio Conte does. He wins. He wins leagues, and he wins them in different places of the world. Just how lucky are Juve, for essentially kind of being able to just get into that Champions League spot? And do you feel that they have another season giving it to Andrea Pirlo, because we all know if Juve did not qualify, they were losing Ronaldo, and they were losing they were sacking Andrea Pirlo. So as it sits now, Andrea Pirlo keeps his job. CR7 sees another season of Champions League at Juve. Do Juve have the same manager going into next season?
I honestly think that Juve, first of all, Juve needs to, get a commission of inquiry into determining who decided that they need to, hire Andre Pirlo. The man has zero top flight experience. He might have been a brilliant, player, but when it comes to his managerial skills, it tends to be lacking. And I also think if Juve really want to compete next season, I honestly think they need to get Cristiano Ronaldo out of the club. I honestly think they're a more complete team without him. I just think he takes away from what other players bring to the table. And as much as, he is the focal point, he is too much of a focal point. So I think in that, it really detracts from any forward progress that they tend to make in a lot of the games that they make, because, he tends to want the ball longer than other players and actually not buy into the system, and maybe Pirlo isn't such a bad coach, and it's just, Ronaldo that's making it difficult, but it remains to be seen.
I'm always going to enjoy having you on the show because you're very controversial. Also, we'll maybe continue this chat offline, but if you're telling me that a guy who scores 29 goals and is top scorer versus
50 to 60%
who scores 24 goals, so a whole 5 goals ahead of your next compatriot, is essentially surplus to requirements, we can continue that chat offline. But Ile, in terms of the Uber Eats League, the Ligue 1, where we have seen something very interesting happen in terms of Spurs manager doing something very Spursy, and doing something that has only happened once, in the past decade, with Unai Emery losing the league as a manager of PSG to AS Monaco. And now once again, we've seen a Spurs manager in Mauricio Pochettino losing the Ligue 1 to Lille, who have done incredibly well in terms of their transfer spending essentially over the last 5 years. I mean, they've got a net profit of 173 million to PSG's 298 in the deficit. So that's a net spend of just over 350 mil that they've been able to go and essentially, knock their capitalists out of the park. Just how impressive has Lille been in terms of wrapping up Touchline today?
I think, the year 2021 has been a year of just history being rewritten for a lot of these teams. I mean, we're talking about, decades of teams not winning the league. After 10 years of Juve dominating, they were literally on the verge of not even playing European football. So this year has been actually, for me, undoubtedly one of the craziest, even more so than 2020 in that regard. Looking at PSG, I'm not even just going to look at Pochettino on his own. I'm looking at the team as a whole, because when they fired Thomas Tuchel back in December, PSG were already second on the log. So I didn't understand what the problem was already from there. I didn't get it. So those issues, I'm guessing, overlapped from that, because as a team as well, the amount of red cards that Neymar has gotten, that surely says that something really is wrong within the team, where so many of them are also, throwing rage within the game. So PSG as a whole, they seem to have issues, but Pochettino, you can't take these things out of certain people. They come with it. But also, he's at least won something, like we always say, sometimes when players leave the teams they were with, or coaches, managers, or whatever, they sometimes get a little bit better. But credit to Lille, credit to all the underdogs, man. I think when we started Touchline earlier this season, we both, Vince, wanted Inter Milan. We wanted Conte to win that league, and he did. Unfortunately, Milan, who were on top of the log for so long, also saw themselves fighting for a place just yesterday. And that alone is, very, very risky for their chances next season. They need to look at that. With regards to Juve now having qualified for top 4, I don't see Ronaldo leaving, considering the fact that they wouldn't have even thought of them being in a position yesterday to fight for top 4 was because of those Ronaldo goals. So take him away, are we already now saying that next season even Europa is not even possible? So that rebuild needs to be molded, needs to be looked at. And now that they are in top 4, I see Andrea Pirlo again on that touchline in Serie A.
Ah, man, and you know how I feel about coaches that have 2 games in under 23s. All of a sudden they get on the football. But that's neither here nor there. Bundesliga has already been touched. We know what happens at Bayern. We don't know what's going to happen with Erling Haaland. We've spoken about that in terms of our other podcasts. So before I also make a snooze festival, we're obviously very much anticipating the Champions League final that's coming up. We are so excited to start up our fantasy teams for the Euros that are going to be coming up. But it's all systems go for an amazing Champions League final this weekend. City vs Chelsea will definitely be having a live Touchline podcast. And honestly, we can't wait. I can't wait to host it, and I can't wait for everybody else to watch it at home. OG, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been as incredible as I would have imagined. Ever the wordsmith, ever the man to go and put it into the words. Please join us again. And Bile, as usual, the energy, the smile, we love it. And 100% we're going to join each other again. And next time it's not just 3 of us, but it's going to be all of us. So from my side, we're joining Touchline today. And from us, over and out.